Hey guys, welcome back to Otter MC. Today we are on a hardcore world in the Lord of the Rings mod. There's a coder named Mevins who dedicated probably a decade or a decade and a half of his life to coding this mod, and it is the most beautiful mod I've ever seen. And I recorded a few hours or like an hour of hardcore footage of me getting here, and I realized it was not good content, so I'm not going to post it, because time is precious, and I have a rule of whenever we post anything on YouTube, it is substantial, and we got to hold fast to that rule, And so today, the topic for talking along and walking along this path is prayer as a means to ward off despair, right? And I think sometimes it's one of the only things to really do if you're in a desperate situation, And it sounds like to people who are not don't have any faith in any belief or any any deity or God or anything like that. I'm a Christian content creator, and but I understand the both postmodernism and nihilism because I've been there, and I'm not saying there's zero good arguments for that, but I am going to say it definitely doesn't lend any peace, but I don't know, it's I think prayer, well, at least what the Bible said is the Lord is my strength. And that absolutely, I don't know, that just that comforts me, man. There's not much else to it. I find great solace in that. And it's and this is kind of where the mask begins to slip a little bit argumentatively, is that a lot of people that spread modern ideas about religion and the world and stuff, they don't provide any meaningful alternative to religious experience, There's no ooh, look at this. There's almost it's all about tearing down your faith is what I realized, but they don't provide an alternative that's super good, It's all this sucks, and I'm disproving this here, and I'm doing that there, and blah, blah, blah. And then I'm all right, well, what do you do to find fulfillment? And they're I just don't. It means nothing. And I'm oh, well, that doesn't really do much for you now, does it? And again, that's not to be condescending. I understand there are plenty of reasons to become a nihilist. I worked fast food for 4 years, and retail. That is more than enough to cause that, more than enough. So I'm I have been married to those hopeless feelings for so long, right? You're not crazy for feeling hopeless in a hopeless situation, but that's why you have to reach out to God. You just have to say, look, I need the strength that I don't have, to keep fighting one more day. You have to, how do you get that fighting spirit when you've just been so, beaten down to a pulp? Just and I don't even necessarily mean physically. Yes, physically, but also beaten down as in, you keep losing things that would otherwise give you hope or a reason to fight, There's this, I think in America right now, things are getting harder, but then they're also whittling away the reasons to suffer, because life is suffering, saying oh, I want to live a life void of suffering. It's yeah, no, you're just not going to, it's you can't ask that, that's life, that's part and parcel with being a human, you're going to suffer at one point, you should not try to avoid it, because you should, but you shouldn't try to run from it when it inevitably happens, because it's going to happen. You're a human being. And so, but the point is to make the suffering worth something. It's suffering for a purpose, right? But that's the problem is we're the ideology right now, it's like you're being disincentivized to have a purpose for any of it, you know? Like they're trying to convince you there's no purpose for it. Or like the average person that believes these lies about, oh, God doesn't love you, God doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's all lies. Like, and if you believe that, you'll start to, you'll have one less reason to live, ultimately. You know, and when enough of those are gone, you'll feel hopeless, right? It's like, you know, your family structure is crumbling, you know, and then you're like, oh, well, at least I have God. But then you get all these people shouting at you that God isn't real, and oh, here's all the proof, and blah, blah, blah. You know, I was foolhardy enough to buy into some of that, to my absolute shame. You know, some of that swayed me, and it's like just so wrong, just breathtakingly wrong. And there's never any like alternative. There's never an alternative that can be provided, right? You know, you can't provide me an alternative for those things. Like, you can't replace God. You can't replace family. Like, there's no surrogate for those things. It's straight up like you either have it or you don't, you know? And so, like, warding off the despair, the answer is just prayer, you know? And that's like, and it might not even, like, you know, I can't promise any, like, grand reaction, but it'll at least, like, be more consoling than if you hadn't prayed, you know, altogether. At least I would reckon. You know, it's in here to think, too, a lot of this stuff is worth a try. You know, we're just going to tear down everything this Hobbit family's worked for. Let it burn. But anyway, it's like you can at least try, you know, and if it doesn't work, oh well, you tried one more method and it didn't work, oh well, you know, on to the next thing. But you might as well not write stuff off,